Hello and good afternoon. A very warm welcome from my side. My name is Christian Bruck, and I'm happy to chair the session 4, which has the topic request to pay. And I'm a partner of Bearing Point and responsible in the financial service area in banking, and there for the payment consulting. Beside that, I'm chairing also the Westhaven Expert Dialogue for instant payments. And today, as I mentioned, we want to talk about SEPA request to pay. And we would start with a keynote from my partner colleague, Thomas Steiner, who is the global leader in banking and capital markets at Bearing Point and is based in Munich. First of all, I would like to welcome Mr. Javier Santamaria. He is based in Brussels and is the chair of the European Payment Council, the EPC, since June 2012 and has been its member since 2002. Beside his role in the EPC, Mr. Santamaria is also chair of the IBAPay board, member of the board of directors of the global legal entity Identifier Foundation, and last but not least, a member of the supervisory board of the Western Union International Bank based in Vienna. So happy to welcome you, Javier. Secondly, I would like to introduce Mr. Christian Rino. Christian is based also in Frankfurt and is a member of the executive board of Helaba, the Landesbank Hessen-Thüringen, and is there holding the position of Chief Information Officer and Chief Operation Officer, so CIO and COO. And he is responsible in his function for the IT, operation and organizational divisions. Then I would like to give a very warm welcome to Stefan Bloch. Stefan is also based in Frankfurt, and he is the responsible cluster lead in payments in transaction banking at Commerzbank in Frankfurt. Last but not least, I also would like to give a very warm welcome to Dani Berger. Daniel is based in Zurich, and he is leading at the 6 banking services, the ecosystem, billing and payments. In his function, Daniel is responsible for the service eBill, and eBill is a digital billing solution for Switzerland.
Thank you very much that I can join this session here. Ladies and gentlemen, dear Dr. Maleki, thank you very much to get the opportunity to open and also motivate this last session around request to pay before we enter into a lunch break. It has been fascinating to me to follow the payments industry in recent years. The entire branch is undergoing through massive changes forced by the tremendous opportunities the ongoing digitization brings with it. If you please move to the next slide. New players entering into the payments ecosystem, trying to win a share of this attractive market. While the payments area has been not high in the agenda of the banking industry for some years, startups, big techs, and other participants understood the strategic importance to play a role in that area with the objective to be as close as possible to their clients while interweaving the basic transaction with the payments process. When we start to look into 4 future scenarios, if you please move on to the next slide. I think it is common sense in the industry to consider maybe 4 different scenarios, how the payment industry could evolve in future. Scenario A, the banks are becoming or securing their pivotal point for payments. Scenario B, the scheme providers are offering more and more payment services and getting some market share. Scenario C, the big techs win the battle and becoming leading payment providers. And scenario D, it's quite disruptive, but digital currencies could really change the game and play a major role in enforcing major changes in the payments landscape. When we think about the different scenarios in putting the client in the center of our considerations, I strongly believe that those players will succeed which offer the best convenience at a cheap price combined with a broad acceptance. All the mentioned players are addressing already several aspects of convenience with existing initiatives. For example, banks have already their experiences with instant payment, which is in fact, beside others, one aspect of convenience. Apple Pay and Code try to make the payments process as convenient as possible by reducing the number of process steps in the payment process for the clients. That's just to name two examples. Especially e-currencies need to prove that beside all security aspects, they also offer a high convenience to their clients. Key determinants or facets of convenience for any successful payment innovation are easy processes, rapidly evolving acceptance, and cheap prices. Now the question is, what could be the next big thing for the banking industry to secure or even extend their dominant role in the payment area? In my opinion, and if you please move to the next slide, the European Payments Council with the published rulebook and the EBA clearing with the setup of a request to pay infrastructure provides the industry an ideal breeding ground to rapidly develop. Banks have the chance to develop a completely new and outstanding customer experience based on request to pay, while interlinking the billing and payment processes and providing this service to their clients directly in their mobile banking apps. There are outside the SEPA room already similar solutions in the market, and I'm very pleased that Daniel Berger from the SIX Banking Services is with us in the panel today, who is in charge for the Swiss e-bill solution, which is one of those examples. The business case for such a solution in the SEPA room is tremendous. A fully digitized end-to-end process with a reduced number of process steps combined with a digital archive of all the e-invoices is ideal to replace the existent, quite cumbersome split process in sending and receiving invoices and initiating a separate payment. Just to give you also some facts and figures, if you please move on to the next slide. If I give you some figures, in 2021, there are estimations out that in Europe, there are sent and received 41 billion invoices with a share of approximately 30% in e-invoices. And this number of e-invoices is expected to be doubled within the next 6 years. With such a solution on request to pay, I'm convinced that banks will retain their customers with a unique customer experience. Combining request to pay with the billing process results in a clear win-win-win situation. If you please move on to the next slide. Corporates sending invoices could lower their cost per invoice, as you can see here on the slide, significantly. In addition, they could really streamline and have lean treasury processes, as this is almost an error-free process. Banks can, on their end, retain retail clients much better, offer a new service to their corporate clients with a quite attractive fee component, which could be priced based on the cost reduction in sending invoices. And in addition to that, I think banks can even develop, based on this very high client intimacy, new cross-selling services. And retail clients, in the end, they have a really convenient and transparent billing and payment service based on the infrastructure of their trusted bank. Last but not least, the solution is, and if you remember, 30 billion paper-based invoices and all the related processes, postal services and things like that. Banks can really contribute to a sustainable environment, to have with a banking innovation their skin in the game to become more sustainable in future. To make that happen and bring the banking industry in a leading position, request to pay needs, in my opinion, to be very standardized, scale fast in the market to gain momentum and visibility, especially in competition with all the other mentioned players and their innovation out in the market. You will see now a 2-minute clip, a video, how a request to pay solution for the banking industry could look like in the future. I thank you for your attention and looking forward to an interesting panel discussion afterwards. Please start with the video now.
The future of the bill is now. Bearing Point Bill transforms your billing and payment process, bringing the request to pay, invoice, consumer payment, and archive all together in a fully digitalized end-to-end process. Request to Pay is an innovative service designed by European banks. Developed in harmony, Bearing Point Bill unifies and simplifies everything. So now you can send an electronic invoice and request to pay straight to the consumer's online bank. They can open, check, and pay right now if they want to, or save until later. And it works for businesses too, enabling simple payments with a single click, leaving them free to get on with the job. And now you can track every bill along its journey with full transparency at every step, all automatically reconciled and archived with industry-leading security, fully aligned with the latest banking systems and standards, eliminating manual process, saving time, improving efficiency, and significantly reducing the cost of every invoice, while making life easier for your customers with simple one-click payment right now. The future of your bill is Bearing Point Bill. Find out more at bearingpointbill.com.
Thomas, for the keynote introduction. And now we would like to talk about the SEPA request to pay, and it's about payment initiation by the payee. So with this, it could be an important step to complete, from my point of view, the payment products family in Europe. And I would like to discuss with my panelists the following topics. So we want to talk about organizational framework and possible use cases, maybe in B2B and B2C area. What are the possible customer benefits? And we want to have an outlook of possible market success, but also what could be hurdles to be successful. So firstly, I would like now to ask each of the panelists to make an introductional statement. What is the main message from him to SEPA request to pay? And then we would go on to the discussion. And firstly, I would like to ask Javier, because he is the one who built it up in the EPC, that we have all have this framework condition. So Javier, what would be your main message regarding SEPA request to pay, please?
Okay, thank you, Christian, for your kind words. And also thank you to Thomas for his references to the EPC, and also thanks to the Maleki Group and the IBF. So my headline is very simple, very easy, straightforward. The SEPA request to pay scheme is alive and operative since the day after, before yesterday. So on the 15th of June, it became operational. That's the big news. But besides that, two words of reflection. First, having the scheme operational is something necessary, but it is not sufficient. So we need service providers to adhere to the scheme and to deploy solutions which can be used by final users. So this is the next phase. And second, also important, that we are not just satisfied by having launched and making the first version of the rulebook operative. We are working hard on the second version, which we estimate to be made public by the end of November. And we will hopefully introduce a lot of functionalities in this second version, and maybe I can elaborate later, because it will enrich tremendously the scheme. And we are envisaging even a further future, because now we are thinking of the necessity of having a third version that we can schedule for 2022, because we won't have time enough to incorporate all functionalities that have been identified so far in our public consultations this year for the scheme. So it is operative, but we are working on a second and a third version to really address the needs and requirements from the market. That's my message.
Thank you, Javier. So the train is still going. It didn't stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
It made the first stop, but it will now proceed. Perfect. Maybe Christian, as you are one of the biggest payment service provider, or payment, I would call it like this in Europe, we would be very interested about your main message in terms of the SEPA request to pay.
First of all, a big thank you to all participants here that I can join today, and the Maleki Group as well. Xavier, many thanks for the intro. I think you create really with the colleagues a wonderful framework. What we learned, if you're doing regulations, we should be careful that we change not too much, while we must implement it as banks at the end, the whole story. And as more you change, as more it costs. From that case, please be careful with us that we have a good fit in that. But I'll be sure, I think the work together with the EPC works very good, and thanks for that. Generally can say, I think request for pay is an additional new payment scheme, but we can really use parallel to other good payment schemes what we create in the last years, including instant payment. But I think it close, I will say, a gap in the payment part, especially for invoices. And from that case, we are quite happy. And I believe that we can use it not only in the B2C, we can choose that in the B2B area as well, especially in bigger companies like telcos, etc., where have huge bunch of invoices and have normally the problem that the income payment is not fitting really to the invoices. And I think this combination of request for pay is a real step forward, I think, for that case. I remember, and I think some colleagues have a couple of gray hairs as myself as well, on the EDI side for around about feeling 20 years ago, we plan an equal standard for invoices. Now we have it on a virtual real-time case, and from that case, I'm quite happy that we have that in this direction, and it opens the door for companies and for the normal citizen will use the payment for sure as well, to have it easier in the online shopping area into the market. From that case, I'm proud to be part of that, and I help a lot in the EBA clearing in the past to establish that. And from that case, from the other side, from the bank, I'm quite happy that we can implement it as well. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Christian. Before crossing the border to Switzerland, I would like to ask Stefan, as a representative of one very innovative bank also in Frankfurt and in Germany, to share his first and main message regarding SEPA request to pay with us.
Yeah.
Please.
First of all, from my side, hello to everybody, and thanks to be a part of this session, and happy to see some of you, as we know, as longer time, Javier and Christian. My message is SRTP, as Javier said, is now out to the market, and it can be used as an optional scheme. Uncertainty exists as to how and when market participants will implement and offer it. SRTP comes with a certain complexity, as Christian said, we have to implement that, and that needs to be understood and implemented. Based on its optionality, the accessibility of SRTP participants is so far a big unknown, but I believe there is a big opportunity and possibility for use cases to use SRTP in the market, and will be a very stable product. But it's a long way.
Thank you, Stefan. And now I would like to hand over to Dani. And yeah, Dani, what would be your main message regarding request to pay, and maybe the Eurozone can learn something from Switzerland? Question mark.
Thank you very much, Christian, for the warm welcome, and Jean for having me here. I think we've heard a couple times that there is a lot of potential associated with R2P, and also personally convinced that we're seeing an initiative that's still in the kind of early stages. Also, if you're looking at the EPC work that's going on at the moment, that, however, does have the potential to reshape the way we're processing eventually our payments, especially in combination with instant payment capabilities. And there we also see a strong increase across Europe. Also in Switzerland, we will be live with the Swiss franc in 2024. This has been confirmed recently. However, to make this transition from, especially in the consumer payment space, also from card payments towards more account-to-account payment oriented infrastructure, I think the user experience and the way how we deliver the services to the end users is critical. Because what we see from various services, also from our portfolio, it's for example, e-bill, but also we have this mobile payment app Twint in Switzerland. If you're meeting client needs, then you see adoption. If it's complicated, starting with the onboarding, starting with the enrollment, for example, with billers, then you see the struggles and you never reach the scale that you're probably striving for. So one advice from Switzerland: focus also on good user journeys.
Okay, Dani, thank you for the introductional statement. Let's talk a little bit about the organizational framework. And I think the audience would be interested, Javier, what are the main goals of the SEPA Request to Pay initiative, and that can be achieved for the Eurozone by using SEPA?
Well, not only the Eurozone, because the scheme is envisaged to be currency agnostic. This is something I may explain later. So the underlying commercial transaction can be made in any currency. So there is no dependency on the currency to use the scheme. You asked for the goals the SRTP is pursuing. I think the goals are very solid and somehow general, but very solid. First, our endeavor was clearly aiming to enriching and widening the choice. So bringing more options to the market so that the service providers could build a wider choice in their turn of market solutions. So that's a first goal. The second one is perhaps more profound, which is to really strengthen SEPA. So we need to build links to have further reachability, further ways to interact in between the different players. Those are, to me, the main goals. I usually tend to explain what a scheme or also standards and infrastructure mean to the payments market. And I usually use an analogy, the Dobs Paradox, coined by philosopher Immanuel Kant. Kant speculated on the doves of the dove flying and finding air as an obstacle for her flight in terms of freedom and breaking or stopping her speed, while not acknowledging that air itself is what makes flight possible. This happens as well with infrastructure and schemes. They may be seen as a limitation, a constraint, something to abide by, something you have to stick to, but it's what makes payments, for instance, possible. So we tend to make these limitations as light and smooth as possible and provide as much freedom as possible in the use of our schemes. those are the goals, making choices in the lightest and most convenient way, and helping to strengthening SEPA as a single euro payments area.
Thank you, Javier. As Christian already mentioned, the banks have to build the request to pay. So Javier just described the goals from his point of view. So from the banking side, Stefan and Christian, do you agree, or do you maybe adapt or have another additional point of view on that?
Should I go first, Christian? Is it okay? So yes, generally I agree, but another view is that SRTP at its core is the idea of pushing transaction details from a payee to a payer's device. Device could be everything, yeah, on that point, and into the chosen payment flow, because we can use different payment flows underlying of the SRTP. And then is the question, how much, what for, to whom, to which bank account, by when, and crucially, a unique reference to match the payment later for cash allocation. Very important point from my point of view. Doing so enables the payer to simply authorize the payment instead of entering those details from scratch into a bank transfer. No hassle, less mistakes, real-time confirmation, and perfect reconciliation later in the payee's system. Combined with new innovations in payments, request to pay can reinvent the customer payments experience in Europe and over the borders. Yeah, the aim of SRTP scheme is to provide interoperability and reachability within Europe to all customers. That is my statement to that. Yes, we don't hear you.
We don't hear you.
I cannot add more. It's exactly our opinion as well. We are relatively conformed there. Long story short, we must take care that it's not too complex, and it should be simple, and it should be clear for everybody. And this is, I think, on a simple way, what we need. That means if we have too many doors open, it will be difficult for us as bank to help the client on both sides, on the recipient and on the payer, to get that fitted. And from that case, I think I would very happy, Xavier, if he got the new updates and it focused more on that. And but I know that you're working on that.
Okay, thank you. So with this positive mood in terms of SRTP, I would like to ask the question to you. What kind of services, use cases do you see connected to SEPA request to pay? Maybe, Dani, you have also a look on the Eurozone, besides that you sit in Zurich. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the way SIX is a financial market infrastructure provider in general, right? So within the banking services area and billing payments area, we're not just having billing solutions and platforms in all colors and flavors, but also the interbank payments processing and with the mandate of the Swiss National Bank clearing settlement eventually. So the way we're looking at this new kind of mechanism is the following. We have a leg that's addressed now with SRTP in Europe, where we get a mechanism that allows you in a kind of unified way to send a request, and then you can connect that request with basically a payment. And this pattern is one that you can basically apply to a whole range of use cases. Of course, it works very well for billing. This is kind of basically also the process that we're having in place in Switzerland with our e-bill solution at the moment. But in combination with instant payments, where timing is much more critical, a whole range of new use cases gets enabled. For example, you could think of integrating it towards point of sale solutions. It could take an important role also in the e-commerce space, and eventually it also could be a good alternative in many situations for direct debit solutions, where we see different approaches today also across Europe, how this is handled. So I would not just focus on one use case. I see the infrastructure element as kind of the real value behind this entire initiative. And then also local flavors can be inserted into the different use cases, because I mean, Europe in general is uniting different mentalities, different preferences. So for sure there will be room also for localization.
Yeah, thank you, Dani. So Javier, hearing Dani describing possible use cases, what did you have in mind when you and your team at the banking community defined these rule books? Were there specific services or use cases you had in mind, or did you go more general on the topic?
Well, it's for the specific use cases, I think it's much better to ask the service providers. But we might have an idea. If you look into the SEPA request to pay scheme, and as has been said, it is not a payment scheme, it's something different, and it addresses the space in between the underlying commercial transaction and the payment itself. So it has an effect on both sides, because it can make the payment more convenient, more accurate, faster even, but it can also have an effect on the underlying commercial transaction, because it can provide further information. You can attach documents, for instance, so you can make that underlying transaction also better or improve how it's being dealt in between the two parties. So that, I think, is the beauty of this scheme, of the R2P scheme. It has been said, and I agree, that we must be very careful when introducing changes when the engine is functioning, because it may uproar and damage the engine itself. So when coming with new functionalities, we must address the real needs of the market, the ones that the service providers need to be implemented, so that they can make use of the wide use of the scheme. If I may spend 1 minute in just announcing what are the new functionalities we are working with, it will give you a flavor of what to expect the scheme, or how the scheme should be expected, how it will evolve. First, we are addressing the possibility of the use of the scheme in an API environment. So instead of looking into how the messages and the data should be exchanged, that makes a technology dependent, we are just focusing on what messages, what data need to be exchanged. So allowing a request to pay to be also exchanged in an API context. We are also looking into the possibility to redirect request to pay, so going to a web or an app where the exchange of information may take a full form. We are also analyzing the possibility of populating the scheme, the message, with an URL, so that a document can be downloaded. So this is typical for an invoice, but we are looking further. As I announced before, we are making the scheme agnostic in terms of currency being used. So you could use this scheme with any currency, not just the euro. So that will help also other communities in the SEPA area. And finally, we are also trying to enhance the way enrollment is made. This has been also mentioned by some other speakers. And we are also trying to make the activation much easier, to bring final users to the scheme in the smoothest possible way. So these are the things we are trying to incorporate to the scheme, so that the scheme becomes more useful, more flexible, and really responds to market requirements.
Thank you, Javier. So from a banking perspective, payment service provider perspective, Christian, Stefan, to you the question in terms of do you have specific services use cases already in mind, or it's just more about have a look at the rule books and we will start implementing on the process and required processes?
I think, first of all, we must fix the basic. I think without our minimum payment functionality, I think nobody have request for pay, bluntly saying. And the second part is what Stefan said at the beginning, reachability is the topic. That means if we get now in the next scheme additional currencies or other user access rights or other handling of that, this will be not speed up the process, it will be eventually slow down it, while we as a bank will not implement in seconds or minutes when the paper is finished functionality. It takes normally in banks 3 months, 6 months or a year, depends on the complexity or functionality, and the budget is not at the moment flying from the sky, what you normally learned in a crisis time. But second of all, I think below the basic, what we should do so, and we committed to that, is I would say that where we see an earning position, we believe that there are suppliers like you as well from Bearing Point and others who would try to jump between. It don't mean angry, but who equal to credit card providers or others would offer service for invoice handling, etc. There are a lot of invoice solutions on the market. I think the major requirement what we should offer are APIs and interfaces for that, what is requested in the past from many larger providers. But if we will offer really a service, depends how many, I would say, really client requests we get for that. But most of the clients have their own ERP systems like SAP or others, and they have more interest that we provide connectors to their IDOC system standards or something like that to handle that on the B2B side. And on the retail side, I think the clients will choose one of the service of one of the provider for the invoice handling. And there are a lot of providers in invoice handling. And I'm not sure if we, especially here as a Hellerbar, we are more, I would say, a clearinghouse plus in combination supporting institutional clients and on real estate and corporate side, that we will focus on that. From our, I would say, subsidiary Frankfurter Sparkasse and 8022 Direct, I'm sure that we will offer in some apps and solutions further invoice services, what we offer today to the retail clients.
Thank you, Christian. Stefan, you have something to add?
Yeah, I can add something because Christian told it in a very right and good way. Fine, for my opinion, it's one of the first use cases should be a combination between billing and payment processing, because there's most potential inside. And then there's one question which is coming up every time is which use case bring added value for our customers. Yeah, this is to be answered, and also value for us as a bank. This is also the discussion we have to do. Yeah, that's it, as an addition to Christian's speech.
Yeah, thank you. So having all this said in mind, I would like to ask Dani, you could be SEPA request to pay the missing piece of the puzzle, as a lot of market participants sometimes say, others deny. So this is a very fancy question. What is your opinion on that?
I mean, as I've mentioned in my introduction statement, I think R2P does have the potential to change the rails how we're paying in the future, right? And having said that, I definitely think that the EPC's contribution to close this triggering gap towards a payment initiation with this R2P initiative is a very, very valuable element, not only for the payments community, but if it's implemented wisely and in kind of a interoperable manner with good user journeys, also a great contribution to a better payment experience in a market or on a continent that is still very fragmented in many ways when it comes to payments and the experiences that you're having. And also, maybe I can add something to what I've just heard from the bank's side. In Switzerland, we're in a model where billing is highly integrated with the banks. We have nearly all retail banks in Switzerland connected to our billing service. And the appreciation of the clients there, it's really something that we see over and over in surveys, in also the adoption rates, but also for the billers, it's of great advantage because the reliability of the payments is much higher. It's a highly efficient channel for them, and it really helps also to optimize cash flows and cash management eventually, but also results in the situation that more and more banks are providing these services to their corporate and institutional clients.
Thank you, Dani. Javier, having in mind that you had the SEPA credit transfer rule book, the SEPA direct debits rule books, then you put on top the SEPA instant payments rule books, and then now you decided to make an own rule book for this SEPA request to pay. So is this an indication that it was the missing piece, or what was the reason why you didn't insert it in other rule books? Maybe your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So that's a great question. Let me just briefly address one of the concerns being expressed. I think it was Christian. We have to really have the right balance in the pace of change. So that we will have a new version in November doesn't mean it will become operational immediately. So we will have to look into when it will become operational, be it 6 months, be it 12 months. We will just follow what the market requires. So in that sense, we will not rush to just to push new versions because we can have new versions. We will react to what really the appetite of the market is. Coming back to your question, I think, well, I don't know if it is one of the missing pieces. I don't know if it is the missing piece. I think it was missing because what this new rule book and this new scheme brings is something which goes beyond payment itself, as I said before. Here now we are dealing with the context of the transaction. So it's
Javier, we don't hear you actually. Okay. Christian, you still hear me?
Yes, of course.
Okay, it's only Javier. Okay. Then, yeah, maybe he has technical problems. Then I would like to ask you, Christian, in terms of customer benefits, do you see for the SEPA request to pay more customer benefits in a B2B case or a B2C, or is it equal? How are your thoughts on that, please?
I think we see use cases in both sides, in B2B and B2C. We believe more in Germany, while Germany is a typical invoice country, that it could be an alternative to credit cards, revolver credits, or an alternative for factoring or sconto solution. And this could be a model who could be interest for the especially B2B side. But we believe for the B2B, B2C side, we see an additional add-on, why especially this mapping of invoices is today sometimes for bigger companies really challenged. And the combination of their retail clients between deliverers and companies who have retail clients then could be a solution. Xavier is back. Xavier, then take your part. I'm quite finished.
Javier, you wanted to finalize your statement, or was it nearly done? We don't hear you. Okay. Stefan, you have to add your opinion.
I will add two sentences.
B2B or B2C, yeah?
Yeah, from my point of view, the focus depends much on how SRTP gain value for the participants. In a pure business-to-business environment, it can create a big value in the processing, as we said, in payment of invoices. Yeah, that is very clear, different to Switzerland, because they, I think, to pay via QR code in Switzerland is now mandatory there. Yeah, or becomes mandatory in September this year. Yeah, and in the B2C environment, SRTP is a choice of the payer depending on the capabilities the payer offers. Yeah, so that is different from my point of view. I like, as a payer, I like to decide which kind of payment I will use. Yeah.
Okay, Javier, you hear us again? We don't hear you.
Yeah, I'm back. I don't know where the connectivity was lost.
Okay. Looking at the future, a question that is often quoted is looking into the next 5 years, and also this new normal is questioned a lot of times, and I want to do it also. From your point of view, will request to pay on a SEPA basis be a kind of a new normal within the next 5 years? And what hurdles would you see on a possible positive way?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think more on an evolutionary scenario rather than a revolutionary scenario. I think that the request to pay will not change everything, will not replace everything, but it will have an effect on everything. So it will have kind of a ripple effect, so that the rest of instruments, the rest of means of payments will also evolve. Will also evolve, taking into consideration that there is this request to pay functionality. So they will have also to compete, providing more value. So my prediction is that the request to pay itself will not create a revolution, but will help evolve, make other instruments also evolve, and make them more competitive and more convenient for the final users. That's my belief. It's a secondary effect. First one will be that, yes, we can enjoy maybe a better way to address certain niches, but it will also force other competing instruments to also enhance their functionalities. That's my prediction.
Christian, Stefan, beside this, something to add?
Yeah, something to add. That what Javier said is completely my opinion. Yeah, combined forces are needed to develop solutions which serve every market player. This is very, very important. And as we said, reach and combined versions is the key.
Fully agree, and it will be a wonderful additional new service. What we not only handle payment, we handle billings and invoices, and I think or documents. I would say more wider. What you said, Xavier, and I think this is the new normal. What we really would have, that we have not only a simple payment from A to B, we would really have a document sharing between the participants, and this is, I think, new. But it's one solution more in our payment. So when I would say in that way, we have instant payment SEPA, we have the old payments, we have a lot of new cross-border functionality issues in that case. And this is one additional service. What would I say we should not miss? I think we need it, but it comes as a nice additional add-on.
Dani, from your point of view, you made a kind of successful people in Switzerland. Maybe your thoughts on the new normal for the SEPA zone, and what can the Eurozone learn from Switzerland? What hurdles did you have on your way, if there were any?
There was one word that we've heard quite often throughout the discussion today, and that was interoperability. And I think this also kind of links to what was just referred to as SU. One of the key success factors, I think, to establish these new rails that add additional capabilities like transportation of documentation, for example, to the overall payment landscape, is that it's not getting too fragmented, right? It's a European initiative, and what we see at the current stage, and I think also in the R2P task force discussions on EPC level, is that there are different countries with different pasts when it comes to solutions for billing and so on. And to streamline that to a certain degree, while leaving some room for local flavors, this is, I think, one of the achievements we should strive for on EPC level. And then we can also think of a successful pan-European vision that I can receive my bill from Italy in my e-banking in Sweden.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Danny. SEPA request to pay could support the account-to-account payments from my point of view. When I got the discussion right, in terms of the actual card payments, do the card schemes have to be frightened, or will it be the same proportion, or what could be the way for cards and the way for SEPA request to pay besides, or what do you think, Xavier?
Well, as I said before, I think it will be up to the end user, to the final customer, to decide. Good news for him or her is that there will be more choices. So that's a value in itself. But it will be up to the end users, which is providing further freedom and further value to end users. That is the big news. And I think that these new functionalities increase competition in between the different options users will have. And this, again, is good news to the end users, to consumers, and also to firms and businesses that have to transact. As I said before, I don't feel that there will be a kind of revolution or a huge substitution, but it will also have an influence and an impact on how card payments will evolve. That's what I think.
Christian, will be the proportion of card payments and account-to-account payments be stable from that point of view?
I think in many times we discuss how we beat the credit card companies, but we should think about how it looks the price model in the future for the end client. That means corporates and retail client. And I fully agree with Xavier. If the value is better than credit card companies offers plus price in combination, then the client will move, and that you will see. But long story short, always depends how the acceptance really is from the clients at the end and how they like it. And this we will see in the next 12 months relatively quickly. But we learned when we established payments, I remember instant payments, Xavier and Stefan remember that very well with me together. I think that was 4 or 5 years ago. Nobody believed in instant payment at that stage. Today is RT1 and tips, I think, the hotspot in the market. Let's see. It depends on the price, speed, quality, service, and the combination of that. And I don't want to discuss how competitors we beat. I think we should have a look that we earn money with that, all of us. And from that case, I looked at another, I will say, view on that.
Okay, thank you, Christian. So we have 4 minutes left and our session will be hard closed. So I would like to ask each, and first I want to thank you, and maybe each of one, because we have 4 minutes, has some seconds for a last message to the audience after this 1 hour session. Dani, we start with you.
the unmute button. Well, I think we've touched upon a lot of kind of perspectives that we're gaining with R2P, but we've also seen that adoption will take some time. There's certain complexity, but it's for sure of great value if there is a mechanism in place also that is increasing competition in the payment space from a user perspective and drives better solutions for the consumers.
Thank you. Stefan, please.
It will be interesting to see which SRTP service provider will participate in the SRTP process. It will be exciting when products are offered to end users via the standardized process and new use cases arise from this. And at least over SRTP is a process created by the market for the market with the potential to further develop itself and its players up to the market.
Up to the market, Christian. Do you see it also up to the market?
Yeah, fully agree with Stefan and Daniel. On a long story short, make it simple and easy, then it will be easier to use. And this is, I think, my request on that. And find a very attractive price in that package, and the cost management should be on the same way. Then we will have success with that. If it's too expensive and too complex, nobody will use it.
Okay, thank you. Javier, before handing over to you, we would like to make a move. Thomas, you will have the last word as you had the first words in our keynote. And Javier, you were the starting point for our discussion. Your last statement for this discussion round, please.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's simple two messages. One, let us recall how critical we were with SEPA 15 years ago. And now we are finding that SEPA is beneficial, and we are starting to love SEPA. So that's my first message. It was very hard to migrate to SEPA, that I recognize, but now we are starting to feel it made sense. And my second message is that it is time for service providers to adhere to the scheme, come to the EPC and adhere to the scheme. It's now the time.
Thank you, Javier. Thomas, as you opened it, you can close the session, please. Your thoughts on the discussion.
I think it was a very interesting discussion. It was interesting to see that there is obviously a kind of common sense in the industry already. So this is quite positive signs, because then I think it's just make it happen. So my last word. Just make it happen. And as it's a hard close here, I wish you all a nice lunch break, and hear you most likely later on in the next sessions in the afternoon.
Thanks to all of you, and have a nice lunch. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.